Mr. President, what is the connection between Umbrella Corporation and this biohazard
No more
insect?
questions at this time. Thank you very much.
The president has announced his resignation.
Within the dark corners of America's worst memories, there lies the Raccoon City destruction incident of 1998. A chaotic viral outbreak, unleashed by the corrupt and secretive Umbrella Corporation, culminated in the destruction of this industrial Midwestern town. Coupled with the full-feature documentary, The Lost City of America, this series aims to give you, the public, a more in-depth look at some of the more important events, people, and information surrounding this tragedy. Information that was previously kept hidden from the public until now. October 1st, 1968. Eager horror film enthusiasts in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania raced to the Fulton Theater to catch the premiere of The Night of the Living Dead, a film that would popularize the zombie category of the horror genre. That year, zombies became another fictional creature that we could vicariously enjoy, knowing that things such as monsters were the stuff of imagination. What people didn't know was during that same year, a corporation would come into existence that would take these monsters and make them real. More than 2 decades after the Raccoon City destruction incident, people are still falling victim to the evil legacy the Umbrella Corporation has left behind. With many of the pharmaceutical giants' creations having fallen into the hands of dangerous and rogue elements across the globe, we have had to completely reimagine how we approach handling biological attacks, and how to best prepare society for repeat events like Raccoon City, such as the Terra Grigia Panic and Tall Oaks incidents, both of which saw bustling, proud cities reduced to rubble. This episode will uncover and explain the details behind Umbrella's most notorious biological weapon, the T-Virus, as well as the shocking details behind the virus's most infamous side effect, zombies.
Basic forms of biological warfare have been practiced as far back as 400 BC.
The story of the T-Virus starts, like most stories in this topic, in 1966. 3 wealthy students at a Swiss university would form a friendship around a specific mutual interest they shared. Oswell Lee Spencer, James Marcus, and Edward Ashford were followers of eugenics, a prejudiced scientific theory suggesting that humanity could be perfected through genetic manipulation, with practitioners believing, for example, that race could be modified or eliminated entirely from the human genome. Oswell Spencer's lifelong fascination with 18th century explorers, coupled with his beliefs regarding eugenics, would lead him to convince his colleagues to assist in conducting an expedition within West Africa.
Species from 2-ton hippos to 4-ton elephants are in abundance.
They would follow a very fantastical account written by explorer Henry Travis regarding a flower he described as having the ability to bestow great power and change to those worthy. Their mission was to locate this elusive flower, named Sonnentrep. If Oswell's interpretation of Travis's account were correct, the flower could contain mutagenic properties that might hold the key to his vision of perfecting humanity. To the surprise of many, the flower was indeed found on that expedition, and not long after its discovery, testing showed that the flower did in fact contain a virus, which they would name Progenitor, a word that is defined as meaning ancestor or parent. Assisting Spencer, Ashford, and Marcus were a small group of wealthy medical school graduates and close friends of the three. Together, they made up the group that also handled all the initial research into Progenitor. This research would prove to be financially costly, more so than the combined wealth of the group could handle, as it would require human testing, and therefore required specialized equipment, but most importantly, concealment. They would need to find a way to generate extra funds to carry out this research. Oswell and his colleagues formed the idea that a dummy pharmaceutical company would be the perfect way to generate funding, a company that would span the world over and take advantage of the rising and expanding medical industry.
For products which improve the quality of living. Pharmaceuticals to maintain and improve health.
This is when the Umbrella Corporation was founded, with Oswell, Ashford, and Marcus serving as leads, and their group of friends serving as the company's board of directors.
The most experienced of scientists may still wonder,
What exactly is a virus?
Around the same time, 2 mutant strains were developed from Progenitor shortly after its discovery, named simply Type A and Type B. These strains had the potential to be weaponized in several ways, which gave the founders the idea of selling biological weapons to the United States military. The sales of these weapons, coupled with the profits from the pharmaceutical front, would surely produce enough money to fund Progenitor development for some time.
There's a new poison. 1 ounce can kill all the people in the United States.
Germ warfare can wipe out an entire city.
nothing could be further from the truth.
This changed in 1975 when the BWC, or Biological Weapons Convention, was established, prohibiting developed nations from the development, acquisition, transference, stockpiling, and usage of biological and toxin weapons.
That the United States of America will renounce the use of any form of deadly biological weapons that either kill or incapacitate.
Despite the United States government complying with this convention, members within the American military-industrial complex still sought to acquire such prohibited weapons. But they absolutely refused to buy a single weapon from Umbrella if it could not guarantee a 100% mortality rate. This was desired, most likely, so that it would be difficult to trace such an attack back to any one entity if everyone involved in the attack was to perish. The program that would manage the research and development of these strains into biological weapons would be named the T-Virus Project.
The origin of the company was to create new starter viruses by recombining genes. In order to produce biological weapons out of these new starter viruses, they began studying virus mutations in order to strengthen the basic viruses they had created. This was known as the T-Virus experiment.
The T-Virus Project encompassed 3 separate operations, headed by each of Umbrella's founders, which independently conducted research and development of their own unique T strains. Their goal was to create a viral weapon that guaranteed a 100% mortality rate, making it viable for sale to the US military. Oswell Spencer developed his T-Virus prototype at his American-based Arklay laboratory, built beneath the forests of the Arklay mountain region. Development of this prototype started shortly after Spencer forcibly tested the Type A and B progenitor strains on Lisa and Jessica Trevor, but it would seem through available evidence and documents that Spencer was displeased with the results he was receiving. This setback caused Spencer to spiral into a jealous and paranoid mindset. He became suspicious of the work Ashford and Marcus were conducting and would assign 2 of his own researchers to monitor Marcus's progress. Meanwhile, Edward Ashford would develop a T prototype that would later lead to the creation of the T Veronica virus. Spencer's paranoia reached a peak with Dr. James Marcus's announcement of a breakthrough in his own research. Marcus created a virus by recombining annelid genes into the viral genome of Progenitor. The first form of the official T virus is born.
At last, I've discovered a way to build a new virus type with Progenitor as its base. Mixing it with leech DNA was the breakthrough I had needed. I call this new virus T, for Tyrant.
Marcus chose to name his breakthrough T virus directly to separate it from the Progenitor virus and its sister programs. Shortly after this discovery, William Birkin, a young researcher working under Marcus, along with his friend and colleague Albert Wesker, stole samples and research data regarding the T virus. Birkin, as well as Wesker, had been placed on Marcus's team by Spencer to monitor Marcus's progress. Once they stole the T virus data, Birkin and Wesker were transferred to the Spencer Mansion laboratory, where they would lead the Arclay research team in the refinement of the T virus. The T virus incited a different response in the host subject than Progenitor's previous strains. It did indeed infect and kill hosts. However, when the host genetics responded positively to T virus infection, it could produce a wide range of mutations that could ultimately enhance the host in various ways, reminiscent of Henry Travis's accounts of the Sonnentrep flower's capabilities. But on the other hand, a strange, unintended series of side effects were observed in hosts. Side effects that, for lack of a better term, created what we have commonly come to know as zombies. First observed by James Marcus at his research lab in the executive training facility, the zombie that was produced from T-virus infection would receive special attention from the Arclay research team. William Birkin, who had already been researching the newly discovered Ebola virus, began to play with the idea of splicing Ebola with the T-virus, further increasing its lethality and transmission among humans.
Due to the Biological Weapons Prohibition Pact, it was illegal for us to study the virus as a weapon. However, even if we weren't the ones to research it, there was no proof that someone else wouldn't be doing that same thing. And so it was considered legal for us to research it, just in case.
Taking the RNA from Ebola and splicing it with the T-virus genome produced the Epsilon strain of the T-virus, the very strain that would spread around and destroy Raccoon City in 1998. They now had a highly infectious virus, and with the zombies that came from T-virus infection, Albert Wesker saw the perfect way to ensure its spread.
Try to imagine the following. If a person who was heavily infected, the disease had spread all throughout their body, could actually stand and walk around, and without knowing it, was in direct contact with other people of their own accord. What if the RNA of the Ebola virus could actually alter a person's genetic code? And if, through that, a person was able to carry the virus without dying? What if this person had the resilience of a monster? That is, wouldn't this person be a living dead whose body carried the virus? Something that could infect others, sort of like a living biological weapon.
This topic is being given special scrutiny in this episode due to a very common misconception regarding these zombies. Because of the title given to these BOWs, many people have and still assume that T-virus infected persons were the Walking Dead, deceased humans who suddenly sprang to life. There's just one problem with this assumption. Those zombies were never actually dead to begin with. Light research on the word zombie will show that it is originally defined as a human corpse that has been reanimated or resurrected after death, hence the term undead being commonly used as well. The origins of this word trace back to voodoo beliefs and practices stemming from Haiti, where zombies would be summoned through spell or ritual, giving the summoner control over the zombie. Stories and legends describe zombies being used to carry out acts of revenge or being used for free labor. A person who has succumbed to T-virus infection may as well be dead, due to the total failure of almost all vital organs and most of the brain's functionality. But, as far as the medical field is concerned, a person is not considered dead until total brain death occurs. Shortly after contracting a T-virus infection, the host will lose consciousness, and it is here in which the virus begins to mutate. The first and most noticeable side effect is the appearance of accelerated necrosis on the host's body, occurring both externally and internally, with the external effects being the first visible sign of the side effect. It is during this phase that the common witness, and even medical personnel, would mistake an infected person as having died, as most vital functions will have ceased at this point. The onset of necrosis will eventually reach the host's organs and brain, the latter resulting in extreme brain damage in the neocortex. Since this is what's responsible for higher order brain function, the damage results in the elimination or limitation of sensory perception, cognition, motor skills, spatial reasoning, and language. How long an infected host would stay unconscious was said to last several hours, and in some cases days, but eventually the infected host will awaken, as the brain is still technically functioning, even if at a very basic level. Unfortunately, the areas of the brain that control aggression and hunger are left intact and exasperated by the immunogenic changes to the metabolic system. Despite the onset of necrosis, it was observed that the infected host's muscle tissue would strengthen, which would explain how, in many accounts, the infected were able to overpower people despite their poor motor skills. These zombies would exhibit a hunger that seems insatiable due to an aggressively heightened metabolism, which requires a tremendous amount of energy to keep up motor functions. Hence, this is why zombies sought to devour their victims, human or animal, to literally keep themselves going. In cases which infected persons remain alive for long periods of time, it was observed that they will even attack and consume each other. It had also been observed that, after some time, the body of zombies will begin to grow because of a damaged hypothalamus and the irregular number of hormones this will produce. Surviving Raccoon City Stars team member Jill Valentine has maintained that the zombies she encountered in the Spencer Mansion were much taller than the ones encountered throughout the Raccoon City outbreak. Given that the Spencer Mansion had experienced an outbreak 2 months prior to the Stars raid, the zombies within experienced growth in their bone density, as well as sporting elongated fingernails, hair, and teeth. Another notable random effect of the viral strains was the V-act process. In some cases, when a zombie is knocked unconscious, it undergoes the V-act process. Within an hour or so, the zombie mutates rapidly, developing sharp claws, teeth, and a drastic speed up of the heart's pumping system. This increase in blood flow throughout the body causes the zombie's skin to sport a crimson hue. This, along with their aggressive nature, is what led the Arclay researchers to dubbing the creatures as Crimson Heads.
There is now evidence that when the host loses consciousness, the body goes into a dormant state. During this time, the virus becomes active and rapidly transforms and reconstructs the basic composition of the body. The host eventually mutated into a humanoid creature. Its speed and amazing muscular development are particularly noteworthy. After transformation, it becomes more agile and aggressive. 4 of our researchers have died from trying to feed it, turning the place into an instant bloodbath. Ever since this tragic and barbaric accident, coupled with its skin color, we have decided to call its kind Crimson Heads. This dangerous and precious prototype specimen couldn't be left in the lab. We had to find a way to store it safely. Termination is definitely not an option. We finally decided to freeze the specimen and confine the body inside the basement of the backyard cemetery.
It's easy to see why people would mistake the infected for the living dead, since the necrosis alone would give the infected person the appearance of a walking corpse, let alone their actions upon awakening, or a lack thereof. For many survivors of the Raccoon City destruction incident, defending themselves against the T-virus infected masses of the city was seen as a necessity and a mercy of sorts, as it can be agreed upon by most that no one deserves a fate delivered by Umbrella's creations. Most of us thought the grieving process was past, but when this knowledge about what T-virus zombies truly were finally came to light, we found ourselves grieving once more. Grieving over the knowledge that those zombies were truly just helpless people, whose very humanity had been taken from them and ultimately met their end at the hands of their neighbors, friends, family, and eventually their own government.
All my colleagues who were infected are dead or dying. And the nature of the disease is such that those still living have lost their senses. This virus robs its victims of their humanity, forcing them in their sickness to seek out and destroy life. Even as I write these words, I can hear them pressing against my door like mindless, hungry animals. Alma, I have tried to survive, only to see you again. But my efforts only delayed the inevitable. I am infected, and there is no cure for what will follow. My life before I lose the only thing that separates me from them. My love for you. In an hour, I'll have entered my eternal sleep, where there is peace. Please understand. Please know that I'm sorry.